back to a brand new episode of Couchside, and we're going to talk about the DNC up to date. There's been 2 primaries, and Andrew Yang's out of the election, who a lot of people in the millennial generation were a fan of. But let's talk about first the 2 primaries. You have Iowa, which was an absolute shit show. And then New Hampshire, which Bernie Sanders walked away winning. What are your thoughts?
Well, starting with Iowa, I heard reporting that literally like Mayor Pete's campaign was involved in the development of the app, or like funding the app, and then like the Hillary Clinton's people were involved with that shit too. So like it stinks to high heaven, that whole thing, to be honest with you. But at the end of the day, what came out of that was you had Mayor Pete and Bernie Sanders neck and neck in the votes and the pledged delegates, and it's pretty much the same story with New Hampshire. Really, the only difference between the two is that you see Amy Klobuchar put up a better performance in New Hampshire than Iowa, but other than that, it was pretty much the same result. Yeah. And so you have Bernie leading right now, but by the slimmest of margins, because Mayor Pete's right up there with him, and it's looking like it's going to come down to those two really duking it out. Mayor Pete being the more centrist candidate, Bernie being the more progressive. But then again, the thing you have to account for is that Mayor Pete in the polling nationwide has very minimal minority support, and is that going to really hurt him down the line?
Yeah.
So for me, Bernie right now looking like the clear front runner. Now, if it goes to a contested convention, then of course there could be some fuckery going down. But
we've seen that. Because that's the thing. You also have Joe Biden, who I don't know, but from where I'm standing, I don't think he's going to win this. I don't think this is his primary to win. Elizabeth Warren, I feel like the steam behind her is kind of slowed down. I think, honestly, it's going to be Bernie Sanders. I think this is the way it should have been in 2016, but here we are 4 years later. It's exciting, being that I was a Bernie fan for so many years, and I supported him really. I was really behind him in 2016. But I'm a little shaken up a little bit, because this year I got behind a candidate, and actually I started getting behind him when you were talking about him, Andrew Yang. And of course, we did a video on Andrew Yang, I think it was like last year or sometime, where he really introduced basic income, that
universal basic
universal basic income, which I thought was interesting. I really didn't have a strong opinion one way or another, but the more and more I learned about him, the more and more I realized he was a true candidate for America's next step into what I think is going to be a very technologically dominant, era. I think technology is really going to expand beyond what we can imagine, and I think we need a leader who kind of understands that, and that's where Andrew Yang was. I think he had a really good grip on the IT world, and I think he understood just the trends of how the world was going. And as someone like myself who works in IT, that was comforting to have a candidate that understood that technology is going to change this country in a way that I don't think a lot of people are prepared for. Jobs are going to get lost. There's going to be a lot of jobs gone because of technology in the next 20 to 30 years.
Yeah, it was really.
But it's going to open up other jobs, other markets. But the way he positioned it, of course, universal basic income, nobody likes to hear that, because everybody thinks, taxes, they're going to be so much higher, this, that, and the other. But when people aren't working, well, what the hell are they going to pay it with?
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, it was really disappointing to see him have to drop out this early, but he hasn't ruled out future political runs. He may run for president again. He may run for mayor of New York City. There's been some buzz about that, too. I would like to see if a Democrat does win this election to actually get him included in the administration somehow. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you could find some kind of spot for him in there, if not VP, something else in the administration of the president. But yeah, I mean, again, sad to see him drop out. He was one of my favorites, but at this point, there are other candidates
that
I
think
are acceptable.
I mean, the table's wide open, but one of the most important things that I wanted to talk about was the fact that I feel like a lot of candidates really put first the fact that, I can beat Trump, and that's the reason why you should vote for me. And I'm like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever fucking heard. Like, that should not be a reason to vote for somebody simply based on the fact that you can beat a guy that you think is evil as sin. Like, no, what do you stand for? What are your policies? I want to hear more about that, because I really haven't heard a lot about the policies except for Bernie Sanders, typical same thing, democratic socialism, healthcare for all, this, that, and the other. But, outside of like half-ass promises, it's the same typical shit we deal with every 4 years.
Yeah, and I mean, that's going to be really interesting to see who eventually does become the nominee. How are they going to shape their whole, pitch to the voters? Is it going to be just, hey, we need to return to normalcy and get rid of this nut, or is it going to be actually like a strong message about policies? Yeah. That's what I'm interested to see what's going to happen with that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also the other big factor is going to be the millennial vote turnout. Like, there's a lot more millennial voters than there are boomers, nowadays. So it'll be really interesting how much, how many of them get out there and vote, because that's going to be a deciding factor if enough of them got out there. I know, like, in our generation, people don't think the vote matters, but it does. It truly does. And if you get enough people voting, you can make a change, honestly.
And I think the data would bear out that, A, the Electoral College helps the Republicans win. And B, that the higher the voter turnout, the better chance of the Democrats.
Exactly.
I think that the data bears that out, and it's just a matter of you got to get someone in there that's going to generate excitement.
Yeah, I mean, you saw it in 2008 under Barack Obama. I mean, historical numbers of people voting came out and elected him. And then, of course, in 2016, the Electoral College, I think, really was the main reason that Trump won, obviously. So, I'm sure people are going to debate that in our comments. So,
but it's so funny to me that, like, Hillary, like, as unpopular as she won, still won the popular vote over Trump.
Yeah, and that's what's so crazy. And I think that's where people get very discouraged when it comes to voting, because when you see stuff like that happen, it's like, well, damn, my vote really doesn't matter. But you got to remember that, of course, the way they pick it, it goes by who wins so many states, and then you get so many votes. I don't want to get into that debate because that's a video we could have another day, but I for one, don't believe in the Electoral College. I don't care what you people in the Midwest say. It's trash. Whatever.
I also want to actually bring up Mike Bloomberg, though, even though he's probably going to be irrelevant. But this guy's been
spending a lot of money.
He's spending hundreds of millions on ad buys. It's like, dude, you're not even like placing in these first two contests. Like, is your game plan for like all the candidates besides Bernie to drop out and then you just take them on? Like, what are you trying to do?
I 100% think that's partially what it is. I mean, here's the thing. In the 30 years I have lived, I can't remember a political campaign commercial in the Super Bowl ever, but we saw, 3 or 4? 2 from Trump, 2 from Bloomberg, and I'm like, number one, how much money are y'all fucking spending? It's like, how much money are y'all really spending out here? But, I mean, if you're spending that type of money to get an ad in the Super Bowl, you definitely have plans to try to become president. You're serious about your campaign if you're posting Super Bowl ads. So it may be to wait it out. I mean, I think Bloomberg's sitting on enough money that he could potentially wait it out till the end and then see what happens at convention. But I don't know. Me personally, I think it is Bernie's, I think it's his primary to win, honestly, in my opinion. I don't think Elizabeth Warren has the support that, she had probably earlier. I think Joe Biden's virtually fell off from grace, so, yeah.
And as long as Klobuchar and Buttigieg stay in it, they're just going to siphon votes off each other. So.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it looks like it could be Bernie Sanders' election. I'm really curious to see what a debate between Trump and Bernie Sanders sounds like, but, hopefully we find out in a few months.
So that does it. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we're going to have more Couchside videos coming at you.
Take care.